the Riviera Beach CRA Meeting, June 12, 2019, 6:05 p.m. Madam Roll Call?
Commissioner Lawson,
Here.
Commissioner Lanier,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy,
Here.
Vice Chair Botel,
Here.
Chair Miller Anderson,
Here.
also present Scott Evans, Interim Executive Director, and Michael Haygood, General Counselor.
Okay. We'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Chair Pro Tem Botel. Okay, do we have any additions and deletions?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, disclosures by commission and staff. I just recently met with a representative for the Broadway Riviera Cove development.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I also had a conversation with a representative from the Riviera Cove development.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I did as well, and I have met in the past with representatives from the Valori Group.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I met with representative from Riviera Cove as well.
All right. Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier, Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, consent agenda speakers, consent agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council person so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Do we have any public comment cards?
Yes, Madam
For
Chair.
consent? All right.
Bonnie Larson.
Bonnie Larson, this is a question I've had for years on the,
Hold on one second, Ms. Larson. The time, Ms.
all right, question I've had for years about the vendors, and this is constant computing. Now this week, there are 5 invoices from them. I left my notes at home. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to stop there, but it adds up to several $1,000s, and we do this every month. And I'm wondering, what in the world do we do every month for a computer company? I just really don't understand. It's been for years and years this has been going on. So if you could explain why we have all these bills from them every single month. This month we got 5 bills, and it's several $1,000s. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that the only,
That's the end of public
Okay.
comment.
Mr. Evans, could you just provide a little short?
Certainly. Constant Computing provides the CRA's IT services. So on a monthly basis, they provide us computer support at the event center, CRA offices, and also clean and safe offices.
All right. Do we have any items that we would like to have pulled from the consent agenda? All right. Can we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, regular business, item number 3.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing staff to enter into negotiations with KCI Technologies Incorporated to provide research and design services for the redevelopment of the Avenue E corridor, providing an effective date.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Evans?
Andre Lewis, CRA Project Manager, will present.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Okay, so we're going to kind of talk through the Avenue E corridor redevelopment project. So the purpose. So we're here to, we're seeking approval to enter into negotiations with the RFP 219-02 highest ranked proposer, which is KCI Technologies, INC, to provide us with research and design services for the Avenue E streetscape study project. So just a brief background. Back in February, the board provided us with approval to publish Avenue E corridor project RFP. May 24th, 2019, the evaluation committee met and completed its written evaluation, also interviews, and KCI Technologies was ranked the highest and most responded firm. So the project deliveries. We expect KCI to provide a comprehensive Avenue E corridor streetscape report, provide us with recommendations for potential streetscape design, provide development impact, and recommend several improvements, and finally give us future development options for the existing and vacant properties along the Avenue E corridor. So a little bit about the firm, and also Heidi Siegel. Thank you. Heidi Siegel from KCI is here if you had any questions after my presentation. Thank you for being here. KCI Technology has well over 40 years of experience. They are considered a full-service firm providing municipal planning, urban design, and multimodal transit solutions. Just a few of their clients, but they work with the Lake Worth CRA, City of Coconut Creek, Pompano CRA, City of Plantation, and the City of Sebring. So the fiscal impact, the project amount approved for fiscal year 2018-19 is $2 million for the project, and the contract term with KCI would be 2 years with a 1-year option. The contract amount would not exceed $75,000. So this is just a 3D design, the concept that was given to us by KCI to give you a little flavor of their bandwidth as far as work and what are some of the possibilities for the Avenue E. So let me pull it up. So that's a little flavor, and any questions?
Which part of Avenue E was this? I may have missed this.
This will be starting on 10th. And if you
Okay.
look at the beginning, it shows the port to the left.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
And of course, we would negotiate and bring back to you a contract for approval to do the design work. But KCI went ahead and showed us some of the potential work that they would like to do for us.
All right, any questions from the board?
Yes, Madam Chair. The person who did that, could they come up?
Sure.
Good evening, Heidi Siegel, KCI.
Hi, could you just kind of give us like a little overview of how you guys put this together?
Sure. We're a multidisciplinary firm, and I'd first, like, full disclosure, I am not creative or talented enough to do this type of computer work. The gentleman, the young man who did it, has a newborn. I asked him to come tonight because I knew you'd be showing the video, but he went home to the baby. So we're, as Andre mentioned, we're a multidisciplinary firm. So we're creative people and technical people who work together all the time. So we actually sat around the table. Some of us had already done a site visit. We described the conditions to our team members and talked about the RFP, which sought to transform Avenue E and make it into a more residential area. We were told at the pre-bid meeting by Mr. Evans that to consider all complete streets components and to really see what could fit into the right-of-way. So after looking at that, we decided specifically to start on the south end because we know that with the port and the containers there, it's very different than the vision that could happen along Avenue E. So we wanted to show how there's opportunities for green space and parks, multifamily housing, and also making people first. So making it safe for people, whether they're biking, walking, or in transportation vehicles. Putting a median in came directly from the landscape designer who did the video. That kind of was his first creative idea. He, came to me and said, "Do you think they would like a median?" I said, "Go for it," and it just kind of grew from this.
So the length is from each end of Avenue E, from the south to the north?
It's from 10th Street to Blue Heron Boulevard.
Okay.
And ma'am, I'd just like to clarify, our intent is not to come in and say, this is what we think needs to be there. This was for us to show our capabilities, and this is a tool that we would use. The process would most likely go, we would meet with the community, get feedback. We would then go back, same process, have a creative session, and come back and show the community and yourselves this, whatever that vision is. But we find that this technology, it makes it easier for people to envision what could happen.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just wonder, will you be looking at the zoning along Avenue E for that stretch? Is it consistent along Avenue E? I'm not even sure what the zoning is like over there. And will you be, if it's not, will you be making recommendations about zoning changes?
Our scope of work will include looking at the zoning. Right now, the zoning does allow some of the things that the CRA is interested in, but we need to understand why it's not happening. So how to maybe incentivize the zoning as part of the scope of work as well. We work with a lot of CRAs, so we'll also look at the CRA plan.
And we definitely want to make sure we have as many community meetings as possible because we've had some road work that was done on the opposite side. And there was not as much community involvement in that. And this is my area, my district. And I don't want to have a repeat of what we had previously with the road construction that we had. So
Yes, ma'am.
That would be very important.
We have the merchant strategy on our team,
Okay.
specifically because of their experience here with the CRA.
Okay.
We went right to Sharon when we saw this job, and we like community involvement. We work in a lot of similar communities, and we have meetings. We go to cookouts. We go to church. We go to people's homes. We get down and dirty in the community because we believe in it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Any public comment cards?
We have one public comment card, Bonnie Larson.
See, I missed a couple weeks, so now I'm back.
That's okay.
My question, oh yeah, I know. My question is to Mr. Scott Evans. We're going to have to start distinguishing between our Evans now. For Mr. Scott Evans, we've had Avenue E researched and designed and everything at least twice that I know of. So we're doing it again now, and I'm wondering what are the criteria that it makes it different now that we're doing it like at least a third time? That's my question. Those pictures were beautiful. That would be wonderful if that were Avenue E. Ms. Botel, you asked about the zoning. We have little convenience stores. We have homes, people with no front yards, mismatch of everything there. So something like that would be beautiful. The medians are definitely out of the question because there's hardly room for two cars to pass each other as is now. So that's not going to happen. But what is it that we want? Because we can't have a lot of what was in this video. So what is it we want them to do for the $75,000? Because if they come back with something like this, it's of no use to us. And how, like I said, how is this design or how is this different than what we had done in the past? Because nothing ever came of that. Now you said that there's $2 million, did I hear this right? There's $2 million in the fund to revive Avenue E. What would we get? We have to have some kind of vision. What would we get for that $2 million? What would that involve? How much could we get done for $2 million? Because everything's expensive. These people are going to charge $75,000 just for the plans. So what is our priority on there? What do we want done? What do we want done for Avenue E that would be doable? Because like I said, right now it's a mismatch of everything, very small lots. The street, in a way, we're going to have a median there because there's only one way, one car going in each direction. So what are we looking forward to? What are we telling them? Because they have to know what we want in order to do their job well. So what is it that we want, and what happened to those other plans we had for Avenue E? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Evans, could you speak to the previous plans as you
Sure.
referred to?
I think we had a very small look at Avenue E to help us apply for grant funding back in 2008. And then in 2012, we had a comprehensive neighborhood planning effort approved with Song and Associates. However, this particular neighborhood, including Avenue E, that portion of that contract didn't proceed. So although we did previously have a contract to study this neighborhood with Song and Associates, we didn't proceed with that work. So we haven't looked at the street since 2008, and even then it was just a very preliminary look so that we could apply for a grant. The $2 million is the CRA's project funding. We see this as a joint construction project between the city and the utility district, and the total cost will be about $10 million for the entire project. And the funding for that we see coming from the three parties, hopefully about $6 million. And then we would like to raise an additional matching funds of $4 million. And part of this study will ideally position us to apply for and get those grant funds so that we can complete the project.
All right, any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Lewis, I'm looking at your evaluation sheet. I couldn't make out your handwriting. It says the use of technology in the presentation, and that's all I got. Is that the same presentation that was done during?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was. That was part of it. That was kind of the closing of the presentation, but it was very robust. Yes.
Would you recall exactly your comments on KCI?
Do I remember my comments on the page? No, I don't. No, I don't. We use the comment section to kind of remind us, well, for me, I use the comment section to kind of remind me because I don't score until they've completed their presentation. So it kind of helps me jog my memory to make sure that I've captured all the things that I liked about it or maybe I didn't like about it. So.
Sure. That's it, Madam Chair.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Madam Chair, one more question. She said that she had someone from the merchant part of it.
Yes.
So she can kind of, give us a little background with that.
Sure, definitely. Please, Sharon, come on.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sharon Merchant. I'm the CEO of a company called The Ms. Factor, of which the Merchant Strategy is a division. It is a combination of my public involvement firm and an ad agency. So we have a very robust company that's able to do a number of different services. But on the merchant strategy side of the house, we do a lot of public involvement for cities, for Palm Beach County utilities, for Boynton Beach utilities. We do work for DOT, the Turnpike, and so on. So we have a lot of hands-on experience in working with communities to talk to them and ask them for their thoughts, ideas, how they want it to look, what they want it to feel like. We typically will meet with the project manager for both the consulting team and for the entity, in this case, the CRA, and we'll ask them a lot of questions. We'll start putting together a public involvement plan, and that plan will sort of outline how we're going to go forward. And it's a public document. It will have a list of stakeholders, those that we can identify on the outset and those that we identify as we're going through the process. We will do public meetings in the impacted area. We will invite stakeholders and anyone who wants to come. And as Heidi said earlier, you can't just do a mail to residences. You have to extend yourself a little further. We'll invite or put it on the bulletin boards of churches and things like that outside of just doing a mailing. To the extent that they want me to, we could go so far as doing a project website, maybe not on this project, but we can. Those are the type things that we do to make sure that we ask for ideas from anyone who wants to participate and capture all of those. At the public meetings, we do take meeting notes. If anybody, we'll have comment cards available. However they want to communicate to us their ideas, we capture all that, and that becomes part of that public involvement document. So you'll have all of that to refer to at the end of it.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ms.
Just a
Lanier.
follow-up question to, the question is, how do you keep the public informed during this whole entire process?
Well, one of the reasons you build a stakeholder database is so that you start identifying the people that you expect that will be interested, the residents in the immediate area, the businesses in the immediate area, utilities that might be impacted in that area, churches or other places of worship in that immediate area. If, for instance, if there are bicycle enthusiast groups, we would add them to it. If it were a marina project, we would tell the Marine Industries Association. So we look for people who could or should or might be interested, and we start building a stakeholder database. So we can communicate with them if we're authorized to do so via social media, by email, by regular mail, public meetings, website, and so on. So all of those things we're capable of. We'll make the determination, the project managers will determine how we're going to be allowed to communicate at the end of the day. And we'll go forward with whatever we're authorized to do.
You're finished, Ms. Lanier?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Lassa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Evans, could you give a brief overview of what your vision is of the Avenue E corridor and how it works in conjunction with the Broadway development?
Certainly. We see Broadway corridor as being more neighborhood oriented as opposed to Broadway. The types of commercial that businesses that we'd like to attract to the corridor would be to provide neighborhood services and primarily for residents who could walk to the area. Beautification certainly will help make a difference. We want to include decorative sidewalks, crosswalks, bicycle lanes, decorative streetlights, some potential park additions, including benches. Pedestrian lighting is very important to increasing the safety and security of the area. Specifically, we have a number of vacant pieces along the corridor, and we see some of those becoming commercial, but primarily a mix of new multifamily residential, which would add more residents to the area who then could shop and support those neighborhood services in the corridor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item number 4.
Madam Chair, follow up. On that item, I just was looking at the scoring sheets, Mr. Evans. So I understand KCI got preference points for being in Palm Beach, but that's not what I seen on the website. Am I missing something?
Yes, I can answer that question. Because a part of the way we score it is we look at their group as a whole. So Merchant Strategies is a Palm Beach County company, and they are part of their team. So they got points for being a part of the team. Now, if there was a situation where Merchant Strategies or KCI was directly located in Riviera Beach, they would get more points. So.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Item 4.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing approval to enter into negotiations with the Valari Group to sell CRA property located at 2431 and 2441 Beach Court, Riviera Beach, to facilitate public parking and redevelopment on Beach Court and to promote redevelopment of the Ocean Walk area, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
We have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second? Is
Second.
there a second?
Second.
Mr. Evans?
Good evening. This item is authorizing us to enter into negotiations with the Valari Group, as well as to begin negotiations and discussions with the other teams who responded to the RFP. In late January of this year, the CRA issued RFP 2019-01. We got 3 responses to the project. The RFP was asking for developers to submit a proposal to acquire CRA property, which is located on Singer Island, for the purposes of providing some public parking, as well as redevelopment of the Ocean Mall Beach Court area. Only one of the responses that we received specifically required the use of the CRA property to allow their property to develop. We are recommending that the board action tonight is to reject the 2 proposals from 2 of the teams, MTM Tesrol and KW Partners, and to initiate negotiation for the property sale to the Valari Group, who requires the property specifically for their proposed project. We were encouraged by the proposals of all of the teams. I will specifically say that, and I'll go into it a little bit further on into my presentation, but specifically, we got proposals that weren't necessarily all mutually exclusive. So we think that all of the proposals, or some elements of them, potentially could be built on Singer Island as part of a much broader redevelopment initiative. So we're also proposing to enter into negotiation with MTM Tesrel Group. They are proposing to redevelop property that is currently leased by the CRA to provide public parking. So we have 77 parking spaces. 77 parking spaces existing behind the Greater Gator site. And so their proposal is to develop that site with public parking and to include a hotel on top. And so we're proposing to provide $500,000 in infrastructure grant funding to support that project, but of course that would be subject to a development agreement that we would bring back before you. The Riviera Resorts concept is shown on the screen above. This is submitted by the Valari Group. They, of course, will be required to follow the regular city process. So at this point, they've only prepared concepts, but they'll begin preparing their complete site plan submittals, along with land use and rezoning that they would submit to development services. And then those plans would be, in the future, reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Board. They will come back before this board and then finally submitted to the City Council for approval. This is the proposed project. It includes a parking garage, and above it, a hotel, condominium, resort development. And it's on property that they control, along with property that the CRA would ultimately provide. Their proposed project includes a 150-room hotel, 120 residential units, some ground floor retail space, as well as a restaurant that would have views of the ocean. They're proposing 170 spaces for their hotel, and 240 parking spaces for the residential units, and 154 spaces of needed public parking that would be included in their project. And we have the RFP included a parking study that identified a need for new public parking within the Ocean Mall area, both to meet existing demands, as the Ocean now called Ocean Walk project has been leased up quite significantly and is doing very well, we're happy to say, and to provide parking ultimately to support future development of the area. As a part of this action, we would like to also enter into discussions, as I mentioned, with MTM Tesrel Group. Their proposal is based around the CRA's currently leased property. So we have an existing lease agreement with the MTN that provides, that allows us to provide this public parking that's shown on the screen above, and it's a part of that larger development which has 77 public parking spaces. As a part of that agreement, we have the right to purchase the property, and it expresses the potential to negotiate a hotel and parking garage on this site that would maintain those public parking spaces that are already existing there. So we would like to continue those negotiations which are already described in the lease that we currently have with MTN. But following up on their proposal to talk about their project, they also would like to redevelop the property that they control along the south side of Blue Heron Boulevard between Park Avenue and Lake Drive. That's also a future resort hotel condominium development site. So as a part of those talks, we would like to talk about all of their properties that they have on those sites. This is just a brief diagram that shows the potential garage that could be built, which would include the existing parking spaces that are there and then parking for the adjacent retail, as well as parking for the new hotel that they're proposing. Specifically, Keller Williams is requesting tri-party discussions to include both the city, because they have some broader redevelopment goals for the area that we'd like to explore with them. And we have asked Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to prepare a master plan for the entire Ocean Walk area on Singer Island. And this would be a part of several other neighborhood plans that will be completed as a part of the upcoming CRA plan update. So we would just specifically concentrate on this particular target area for that portion of the study. And they have a schedule. And so we would like to include the Keller Williams team, who is the third-ranked team, in those discussions, as well as bring in the city so we can have a broader discussion about the redevelopment that they're proposing, which also includes some development on the Ocean Walk site that's controlled by the city. The Valari Group proposes to move quickly on their development plans, so they will be fast-tracking their submittal to Development Services. But we, as a part of the stakeholder meetings, we will have them meet with Treasure Coast quickly so that they can be included in those deliberations later. That completes my presentation.
Okay, do we have any public comment cards?
We have one public comment card, Bonnie Larson.
Okay.
She's back.
Got a lot of subjects on tonight. I'll give you a little history on this property.
State your name, please. Ms.
Bonnie Larson, 2431 and 2441. For those of you who've been around a while, it used to be Max and Eddie's, and then there was another little sandwich shop next door. Now, the CRA, our previous CRA director, wanted to buy those properties, and so the little sandwich shops, their liquor license was not renewed, which kind of put him in a bind because he was open 24 hours. Anyway, there's a little history there. But anyway, we knew at that point that the CRA was going to buy these two properties. So we bought them. One we bought for almost $600,000, the other one for $250,000, and then we paid to have it demolished. As it was presented to us by the previous CRA director, we would use those two lots for parking, overflow parking for the beach and the Ocean Mall. But that never happened, and that was never the intent. The intent was always the Valari Group. We would buy it and then somehow end up with them. I don't know why, but that was a little agreement that was made there. But anyway, so those two properties were just left sitting there. This is since like 2013 or so. Nothing happened with those two properties. Instead, the CRA rented parking behind the Greater Gator. Here we had two properties we could have used. We supposedly were going to use them for parking, but we didn't, keeping them for Valari. So, check my notes with me. Anyway, so those properties have just been sitting there for years. Now, if we're going to sell those properties, all right, so what Valari wanted to do, he owns the Sands Hotel, which has been there since 1952. Old hotel, kind of controversial. He wants to tear that down, build another hotel, and this would be a hotel condo. Now, this part I didn't understand. It said a restaurant there, and then it said use of the ocean. I don't understand how use of the ocean ties in with his building a restaurant there. 150 rooms, 120 residential, so it'd be 120 condos. Only 25 spaces for the restaurant. Well, you're going to have that many people and staff at a restaurant, and 24 parking spots for the retail. Again, it's not enough because you have salespeople and hopefully you have customers. So that's a little history on it, what we did with that property. We just let it sit there, and instead, and the property that we rented behind that parking that we rent there by the Greater Gator, the little tie-up, there's always a tie-up with something. The tie-up with that was We could provide the parking lot. If we wanted to buy that property, we would provide the parking lot, and then he, MTN, would build a hotel on top of it. So we would get the expensive part and all the liability of a parking garage, which if you've ever read about parking garages, it's a lot. And then he would put his hotel. That's the only way he would sell it, was he would put the hotel on the top. So then he would automatically have the parking, which we provided. So would there ever be enough for the people at the beach? I don't know, but that was his proviso. He wanted definitely to have the airspace above our parking garage. So that's a little history. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission, have any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm just very pleased to see this moving forward. I hope that we don't have any delays as a result of involving the Treasure Coast. I'm happy that we're involving them in helping us with this, but I'm hopeful that there are no delays as a result of that. And I think Mr. Evans has assured me that that's the case.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Evans, so obviously we're going to need some zoning changes. Have we accounted for that? And not only zoning, this is not that quick of a process, Dr. Botel. I'm just really curious because zoning changes is something that requires several. Well, it requires an analysis and then also has to go through development services as well as, through the planning and zoning board process, and we have to adopt something. And I'm just curious how that's going to work in concert with, like, when do we transfer title? And
Right.
is that contingent on zoning? And also, that's my first question.
We're going to negotiate the sale agreement, and we'll bring back to this board for approval. The approach would be to complete an agreement that provides them the confidence that they know they have the CRA property for their development, so that they can. It's very expensive to proceed with doing the construction plans, the zoning applications, and submitting the engineering plans to the city. But the actual sale of the property would not go through until the actual project was proceeding. So so we won't be selling the property and then waiting to see if the project happens. We will give them complete confidence that they have control of the property if they're actually going to build the project.
Specifically,
yeah.
Specifically, the contract for sale and purchase will be conditioned upon them getting permits. Construction, we will only close when they are prepared to come out of the ground. So when he says assure them, that will be that they will have a sales contract. What is usually considered, they will have to show that they have control of the site, but they will not be able to, we will not actually close on the transfer of the property until certain conditions are met. And we will bring that development agreement back to you and the sales contract before we move any forward. The item tonight is to authorize us to enter into negotiations with them. And assuming that we don't, and I have no reason to believe we won't, assuming that we don't reach negotiations, then we'll come back to you until we either reach the impasse or we're unable to move forward.
The project that is as proposed, their concepts, they haven't developed the details, which would identify how much of, which zoning regulations they would need to amend. However, they definitely will need to amend the zoning land development regulations specifically. So that they will be required to, as a part of that process, prepare reports, summaries, and make application to the development services, both for their site plan and for those changes. As a part of that process, they'll also be required to hold public meetings on Singer Island, which will involve the residents specifically in advance of before even going to the Planning and Zoning Board to get community input on their proposed project. So the project, as included in their proposal, is just a concept, and I imagine it will be refined and changed and modified as they develop the final construction and engineering plans.
And just to follow up, the proposed negotiations with the other group as far as the $500,000 infrastructure payment will have similar conditions. that money will be conditioned upon them being able to bring the project to fruition. So they'll have to, again, be able to show that they have zoning, that they have construction financing, before we will actually work out any agreement with them as far as infrastructure grant.
You done?
Follow up.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask about site control. So at what point will we, I guess, have, in Mr. Evans' terminology, assurances that site control, that they have site control? Is that prior to them submitting the site plan approval and having some sort of authorization to do so?
Well, I think that's a requirement of the city code, that before you can move forward in submitting a request for zoning, you've got to show the city that you have site control. So in addition to the CRA's property, I assume that any property that they don't currently own, that they'll have to show that also.
You done? Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
I just want to make it very clear. I am well aware that this is not something that's going to happen overnight. Believe me, if I was in any way neglectful of the opinions of Sika and other Singer Island residents, shame on me. I think my insistence on beginning negotiations as soon as possible is what I intended to convey, that there would be no delay in that. I mean, I'm well aware that we have issues around the zoning, issues that the community may have desire to have input into, so I know it's not going to be overnight, Mr. McCoy. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other comments from the
I just
board?
wanted to ask, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just tell us, Scott, Mr. Evans, how does this benefit the city?
If we're able to realize these developments, first, it brings much-needed hotel rooms to the area. The hotels, there's lacking hotel rooms on Singer Island, and tourism is probably one of the biggest economic generators in the county. And we would like to attract more visitors and provide that opportunity both for our residents and to grow tourism for our local business. The tax revenue that would be generated from construction of these projects, which is the primary mission of the CRA to increase our tax base, would be greatly enhanced if we were able to construct these projects. So on an annual basis, the amount of dollars that the city would receive from those new developments would be quite significant.
Could I add on to that, Madam Chair?
Hold on, are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Thank you. I have of late received many inquiries about the potential of closing, is it Beach Road? What's the road on the east side of the Ocean Mall shops? Is it Ocean? What's the name of that road? The ocean side of the shops. Any case.
I think it's Ocean Court.
Is it Ocean Court? So I've received many inquiries from residents of Singer Island in particular as to whether or not we could close that road. They're concerned about children running out into the road. They're concerned about pedestrian traffic being, in danger because people zip along that road. And my response to them is that we cannot do that until we have more parking. People complain vehemently about the lack of parking at the Ocean Mall. The vendors there are concerned about the lack of parking. People who go there just to go to the beach or to go shopping are always concerned, and they express to me a huge desire to have more parking spaces available. So this is a critical need on Singer Island, and I agree completely that it will bring additional revenue to the city, and it's a good thing, as long as we do it right. And I think we will. We'll have a lot of community input, I'm sure. Believe me, people on Singer Island can be vocal when they need to be. So I don't doubt that they'll be shy about expressing their concerns. So I'm anxious that we move forward on this. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions or comments from the board?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, one more question. So how much additional parking does it bring?
Ultimately, that will be what we negotiate. The minimum would be to provide 151 parking spaces within the Valari proposal for the public, and to protect at least the existing 77 public parking spaces that exist in the land that we lease. If we could add another 100 on that site also to support future development, so that would bring the total to approximately 325. And we'll, of course, negotiate that with those partners those teams, and then we'll bring those results back to this board.
Anything else, Ms. Lanier?
That's it.
Mr. McCoy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Evans and Mr. Haygood, I just am trying to understand, so it appears that we're doing two different things, and if so, do we separate them? Because, you know, it was Mr. Haygood who pointed out that the $500,000 grant will be tied to, I guess, some assurances of financing. I don't understand how, if it's a grant, I mean, I need something more than just this four-liner to make me understand exactly, if it's a grant, what exactly are assurances we need beyond.
Well, the grant is for infrastructure of the new project. So before we would actually convey or transfer any monies under the proposed grant, they would have to, this is proposed negotiations, of course, they would have to prove to the CRA that the project is viable, that it's moving forward before we put any money into the deal. That's on both projects, really.
And the resolution doesn't authorize $500,000, but it allows us to negotiate for that amount to bring a development agreement back to this board, and that development agreement would specifically outline what the CRA is contributing, the benefits of the project, the tax revenue, and the public parking that we're achieving for our investment.
Okay, so it will come back,
Oh, yes.
grant. Well, the reason I'm asking is because I know on Riviera Beach, the city side, we had a project that we did infrastructure improvements, and the city holds a lien, but I don't understand how that works. If it's purely for infrastructure, that's going to always be there, and can't we assert that lien onto the property per se? Because if we're giving a grant, it should be just that, right?
Well, yes, but
And
I'm sorry.
I guess my understanding of infrastructure improvements will be that's the initial part after site plan. That's the initial part of construction, the infrastructure part. So where does that come in at?
Well, correct, but until they actually come in with plans rather than some concept, they come in, we talk about the second group now.
Correct.
They come in with concrete plans, show that they have site control for what they're trying to achieve, show that they have arranged construction financing, and that in fact they have zoning, they really pull permits. And as you know, developers are required when they have developments of that magnitude to make infrastructure requirements, to not make those
Impact.
you know, so we are going to grant to them in one form or another. It may not be an actual $500,000. We may negotiate something, a concept of where they are able, with a tax increment, over a period of time, they won't have to pay the tax increment. So, but the point is that we will not invest anything into the project until the project is ready to go. We aren't going to just say give them $500,000 for soft costs, for architects or anything of that nature. This is an infrastructure grant. That's the proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
No.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries with Commissioner Lanier dissenting.
Item number 5.
Discussion of site plan approval to construct 16 two-story buildings comprised of 89 residential townhome units, which is referred to as Riviera Cove, on 9.5 acres of vacant multifamily land.
Mr. Evans? I'm sorry, we have, was just a discussion.
Discussion.
You
Yes.
need to vote, okay, go ahead.
The agency is requesting that the Board of Commissioners review the proposed project and provide comments as a part of the city's project and land development review process. The comments that are made by the CRA Board would be forwarded to the City Council to assist in their consideration of the project. We believe that getting market rate townhomes located on the Broadway corridor would be very advantageous to both attracting new development in the future and to providing needed housing opportunities within that area. The project is proposed to be constructed by D.R. Horton, and the applicant is here to make a presentation to the board. Hope Calhoun, I'd like to ask her to come up to the mic so she can make a presentation, and then I'll be available to assist with any questions or additional information that the board might wish.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hope Calhoun, attorney on behalf of the applicant. I'm here with our planning firm, WGI, and the applicant, D.R. Horton. So as was already described, we are presenting Riviera Cove. I did it wrong. Hold on.
Andre, can you help her?
Thank you. Before you tonight, you're really just reviewing the site plan, as was already explained by Mr. Evans. The red box represents the actual location of the property, 9.5 acres approximately. It is adjacent to Broadway Avenue and 34th. The blue just highlights the CRA boundary. Here's a closer look at the property itself. To our south are existing mobile homes. Actually, the next slide I think shows it better. Single-family homes to our north, west, and south, mobile homes and commercial also to our south and to our east. Again, just more information about the property. Again, as I've already stated, approximately 9.5 acres. Again, what's before you tonight is the site plan, and it says, as has already been stated, we are proposing 89 townhomes in 16 buildings. The townhomes will consist of 4-unit buildings, 5-unit buildings, 6-unit buildings, and 7-unit buildings. Primary access will be along Broadway Avenue. You can see to the north, it's interesting that the Avenue E contract was on tonight because we are, as a part of your city's comprehensive plan and in working with your development staff, extending Avenue E southward. You can see that extension if you look at the north end of our property. The parcel to the existing mobile home park, if and when that becomes ultimately developed, they will develop the southern portion of Avenue E. Again, just more information about the site plan. We have a dry retention area on the north side of the property, which consists of approximately 1.56 acres. Recreation area is proposed adjacent to Broadway, and that consists of approximately 0.4 acres, 0.38 acres. As I just described, we have the right-of-way of Avenue E extending through our property, again to the south. That will be developed once the adjacent property becomes developed. Also along Broadway Avenue, we are proposing to put our mail kiosks, so as residents drive in, there are parking spaces nearby. They can stop and get their mail, or they can park at their homes and get some exercise and walk to the mail kiosks. Also close to Broadway is the tot lot. You can see there marked by the arrow, and we're going to have a shelter, and the public school buses can pick up children from there, and parents can also sit there and watch their children as they play in the tot lot. I just described the architectural renderings I just advised you rather that you'll have 4-unit buildings, 5-unit buildings, 6 and 7-unit buildings. So this is an example of the 4-unit building. This is an example of the 5-unit building. In terms of parking, the end units, which on this particular graphic are to my right, have 2 parking spaces in the garage, in the driveway, because they are on the end. This is a 6-unit building, and also there's parking obviously in the garage. That's the big door. That's the garage, obviously. 7-unit building, and with that, I say thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would just like to add on that the project was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Board on May 23rd, and the Planning and Zoning Board recommended that the City Council approve the project. Redevelopment of the Broadway corridor is a high priority for the city. This is a vacant site that will provide new home ownership opportunities, and bring a residential project to the corridor, which the CRA plan identifies the need for new residential development. And we think that this is a very positive addition to attract future redevelopment to the corridor. Thank you.
I'm sorry, just to add to that, I think it was already said, but these will be market rate units. I think that was already said.
Do we have any public comment cards?
We have 2 public comment cards.
Okay.
Bonnie Lawson and Savoy Berryman.
Bonnie Larson, I urge each of you, I wish you would do this before you would vote, but I don't know how that's going to happen, to watch the P&Z meeting. There were a lot of questions in there and a lot of concerns. Number one, they asked about security. No security. They said each individual will have to have their own security. And there was a gentleman who owns property across the street, and he said it's a real iffy area, and he said, I'm concerned that it's going to flow over to us. The attorney, Ms. Calhoun, at the meeting, she said that this property would be consistent with the property to the south, which is a trailer park. Well, we don't want it to be a trailer park. We don't want it to be consistent with that. We're trying to upgrade our city, and trailer parks are on the way out anyway. So to say that it's consistent with the property to the south, that didn't make sense to me. Also, Avenue E, I still don't understand this with Avenue, the way they show it, because Avenue E only goes to 28th Street. So I don't know how they're on 34th and they're talking about reconstructing an Avenue E over there. That I still don't get that. Doesn't look like that property went as far west as I originally thought. Parking, they said, all right, they didn't mention the price of the units. At the meeting, someone asked, and she said very quietly, upper 200s. So we need to know what price range we're talking here. I read an article, I think it was a South Florida Business Journal, and they were saying like 200,000 to 700,000. So we need to like pin them down to that. They're going to be it's going to be 3-bedroom units. So you could possibly have 6 people in there. Now they say there's parking there, and that's a problem with Riviera Beach. We only make them have 2 parking spots per unit. Well, everybody's got a car these days, and hopefully these people will be working, and the wife and the husband will both have a car. Then what about the kids? You got 6 people in those units. Think about it. Where are they going to park? So they said, well, they're going to have 100 guest parking spots. Those parking spots are going to be used on a permanent basis by the people who own these units. I have a friend who has a unit like that, and they're parking out on the street. They're parking in all the guests. There are no guest units, so you will never have company come over. 2 bus stops on the property. That's a little bit concerning. The attorney also said that the homes, if they put homes there, it'll draw in the businesses. I disagree with that. I think if you have the businesses, then you can have your living quarters somewhere else. Because we have to decide, it's a major point here, we have to decide what we want on US 1. I thought that was going to be our business district. Now we're talking about putting homes there. If you have a housing project, are you as a store owner going to want to move in next door to that? I don't think so. So let's be organized this time. Let's decide if we want this as our downtown area or if we want it as housing. What do we want there? Because we don't want to mismatch it as it's been done in the past. The parking again, all right, in front of that garage, a 1-car garage, there's going to be 1 car in front of it and 1 car behind it. That second car is going to be right on the sidewalk. So I wish you would look at that, even if you don't tonight. Look at that P&Z meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Savoy Berryman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I represent
State your name, please.
Savoy Berryman, 3600 Palm Drive, Riviera Shores. I represent several residents over there that are very interested in this project because it's very close to our home. And all the things that you guys are trying to do here in this town, it's a very integral part of getting the CRA vision going. It's kind of a stepping stone because this town, let's face it, on US 1, there's not a lot of action. Nothing new has really been built there in a long time. And many cities, Boynton Beach, Delray, West Palm, Lantana, Lake Worth, have all done the mixed-use projects with great success. And it's kind of about time, and Riviera Beach really does deserve it. So, when you come into town, there's a little marquee that says the best place to live, work, and play, right? Well, there's a lot of work going on over there, but there's not a lot of no living, not a lot of playing, old buildings that need to be helped, let's say. I don't want to, for lack of a better term. In my opinion, and lots of people in my surrounding neighborhood, we believe that projects like this are absolutely a necessity to get this town rolling, to get that foot traffic that you guys are looking for on the eastern corridor. You don't have any of that. You know, if someone wants to walk out of their nice new townhome to go to a little bar or restaurant or whatever it may be, you know, you have to start somewhere, and this is kind of it. So, being the first one, I say you guys and everyone in this room should go for it, unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I believe if the representative, we wanted to ask a few questions for the young lady. Ma'am, quick question. The view off of Broadway, the frontage that's going to actually be facing Broadway, what is that going to look like coming off of Broadway?
We're getting there. There it is.
Mm-hmm. Now,
So,
go ahead.
you go ahead with your question, please.
So that's just going to be landscaping, that's going to be an entry into the complex, not a gated community, and then you're going to have parking at the front.
That is correct.
Okay. Signage and what type of landscaping?
The landscaping along the front will be mostly shrubs, just landscaping, no big trees, shrubs and bushes. There will be a monument sign. I don't think that's gone through. That's not gone through. Has that gone through? This signage? There will be a monument sign on the property.
I believe the landscaping right at the entrance on both sides, there's two significant palm trees that are proposed. The name is escaping me, but it's the very large ones that we have installed along the Broadway corridor in the medians.
Mm-hmm.
So the landscape plan I reviewed had two significant trees on both sides around the entrance signs, which really makes a marquee entrance.
Thank
And
you.
then they had some shade trees to the north and the south of that.
Okay. The type of trees are actually also a concern as well. I want to make sure that they're consistent with that Broadway renovation and the corridor that we're improving. So the palm trees is what we would be looking to bring in that area. And also in the complex, the type of trees that are actually put there. I know some of the other subdivisions we had, like oak trees were used, and once they mature, that actually damaged a lot of the plumbing and a lot of our septic. So the type of landscaping is going to be important when we bring this project back for approval. The rendering that you actually showed us as well, the frontage of the homes, if you could go to that. This is just a basic rendering. Is this a final product? Is this what we're looking to build there?
More than likely, we can look at adding some additional features. We can talk to our client, obviously, and see what we can do to add some additional finishes there.
Because this is our downtown corridor, I would love to see some a little bit higher end finishing, something that can kind of really improve it, because this is going to be that downtown area, and we want to make sure this is the top-notch finish, because those are just really simple finishing. So maybe some type of awnings on the actual sides of the houses and the frontage of the house as well.
Okay. Take that under consideration. Thank you.
And market rate, price range. Can you give us an idea on what market rate looks like as of now? I know that you can't tell us within 6 months to a year, but market rate as of today, if property was being listed.
Mid 200s, around the 250 mark.
I'll just add that the trees are Phoenix date palms, and they're actually, the ones that are at the entrance are shown in that rendering.
Good. And then the oaks behind there, those are in the retention area, or what? Is that going to be on the project as well, or is it going to be palms throughout the entire project?
Good evening, Doug Murray with WGI. We're the planners and landscape architects.
Excellent.
So at the entrance, we do have 4 date palms, 2 flanking on both sides. And then on the right side, there is an oak tree behind the signage, but all the oak trees on this project are in open space behind the homes. We don't have any large trees. I don't use oak trees near any sidewalks or roadways, so they're all either internal, like I said, behind the homes, but not close to homes. Wherever we have space, we're going to use them. Along Broadway, we have hollies and buttonwoods, so small trees, they're not going to damage anything.
Okay, they're small trees now, 10 years from now. I was part of the association with Thousand Oaks, and we had a lot of issues with the type of oak trees that were planted that actually damaged a lot of the sidewalks. So, yes, at the time they're small, but in the next 10 years we have to consider what's going to do to our properties.
Understood, but we're not planting oaks near Broadway or any of the internal roads.
Well, not just Broadway. I'm talking about the homeowners that are going to be buying in our community. So these homeowners, we need to protect them as well if we're going to be putting trees that are going to damage the property, and the association is going to have to deal with this in the next 10 years.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly use different species of trees, but again, where we propose oak trees, they're nowhere near any. They're set back from homes and utilities.
I've just experienced it, so that's why I understand. I want us to make sure we're very cautious with the type of landscaping we do and how the look of our property actually is going to be on the Broadway corridor.
Understood.
Go ahead, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, Mr. Evans, what do you need from us?
We will forward all the comments provided by the board along with the minutes to the development services so that they can provide a summary inside your city council agenda packet because you'll be reviewing this and making the final decision on this project when you sit as the city council.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd also like to comment that I think that this is actually the exact direction that we need to be going as a city with development.
You all did a ventriloquist act on me. I thought I heard Mr. McCoy, and then you started talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I sometimes feel like I'm Mr. McCoy.
Go ahead. That's okay.
Commissioner Lawson always takes things from me. He took a committee from me, so I'm not surprised.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Inside joke, I guess. Go. So, now are you finished, Mr. Lawson?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Mr. McCoy?
Mr. Evans, the plat, site plan, and zoning all was unanimous at P&Z?
I don't know if they were unanimous or not, but I know that they were approved.
Okay. And there was one other question, but Commissioner Lawson stole the floor, and I forgot. That's it, Madam
You
Chair.
knew what you were thinking. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Lawson?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm very excited about this project, honestly. I really want to see that we bring this type of development down to this corridor, because then these homes will actually continue to attract more business to that corridor, giving actually residents the opportunity to have housing. The price is actually pretty affordable if we can connect with some of the opportunities, first-time home buyers or workforce housing as well. And Mr. Evans, if we can oversee that, I know that we have a few people from the county that we could connect them with getting some first-time home buying grants and giving opportunities for our residents and our city workers to have these homes as well.
And I certainly agree with what you're saying, Mr. Lawson. This is in my district, and it's pretty dead out there. At one point in time, we did talk a lot about bringing more businesses to that area. That has not happened, and so I think bringing in the people who are then going to spend the money would help increase those businesses in that area. So I'm looking forward to having a development come in this area.
Yeah, I really don't want to see this as a rental community. I would love to see this as if we can work with the first-time home buying, SHIP funds, county funds, to get these homes purchased through people that actually work for the city, that they can actually live, work, and play, like one of our speakers did say.
Most definitely.
Madam Chairman, you may want to suggest at some point to the developer that there be certain restrictions in the homeowner stocks to prevent this from becoming a rental community. There's certain ways that you can discourage the owners of the property from renting the property, and I'm sure they're aware of them.
Okay, well, we need to make sure that our attorneys and our city manager and executive director ensure that we have that. All right.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, sorry.
No, go ahead, and then, I don't know, were you wanted to speak
Well,
afterwards?
I thought that's already a condition. There are some restrictions regarding, but I guess we'll see that later when it's presented during the site plan about the restrictions on rental for at least the first year.
I wasn't familiar with that, but maybe so. It's one. I think most developers now are trying to prevent investors from coming in and snapping up the units and then turning it into a rental community.
Sure.
And that's been one of the ways that you can do it legally or constitutionally as far as restricting property ownership.
Thank you, Mr. Haygood. And I certainly agree, Commissioner Lawson, about some restrictions. However, I'm not exactly sold on the idea of everything being completely, allowed for those Palm Beach County grants, because there are some very tight restrictions on those as well, because I'm seeing more often than not, when you get in them, you can't get out of them, or you lose whatever that grant opportunity is. But my understanding that there are at least 1 year restrictions on the preventing the owner from renting it. How that plays out, I'm sure that is a discussion that at least we can ask them to bring back some more details when it comes for site plan approval. But those county grants are pretty restrictive in itself.
Yes, I believe Mr. Gagnon's department has included a recommended condition that in order to increase neighborhood stability, all units sold must be owner-occupied for the first year after the initial sales date. So I believe they'll be proposing that in the actual resolution to approve the project.
But the only way you can enforce is the only way you can really enforce it is to have it in homeowners' docs.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not that you can control it through a city resolution or ordinance.
All right, Ms. Votel?
Yeah, I've been working hard on Workforce Development Task Force for the past year now, and I'm wondering if there can be any way that we can include in this project, if not for the building of this project, some sort of training for people in the construction trades, but maybe a promise that they will be training for some future project. In other words, can we get any kind of a commitment from the developers that they would help us in our workforce development training projects, especially in the construction trades, obviously?
I think they've heard that comment, so we'll provide it.
Thank you.
Follow up.
Yes.
Commissioner Botel, make sure you speak to him, because, I want to make sure that if that's a commitment that you want, let's have the conversation. Well, not let's. You should have the conversation about what's your expectations, especially before they come back to site plan, because, I did too see that article in South Florida Business Journal, and I was very much surprised. I don't know who sent out the press release for that, but when I seen it, I didn't even realize that they were talking about on Broadway. I'm thinking, wait, this can't be in Riviera Beach. And then I got more information from Mr. Evans. So certainly I would like to see the Workforce Development Board involved, but I think now is the time that, if we have our ask of what we want, this to look like as far as our developers. I don't want to get into steering who the contractor or GC or anybody like that, but certainly we have a lot of people in our local workforce that can be involved in this project, and I would like to see that. So Hope Calhoun is her name. I have her number.
I do too.
So, and the Whiteman Group. So I certainly think that's a great idea, Commissioner Botel.
And I think item number 8 may lead us into having a little more, I know we've, for a long time up here at the dais, we've always talked about making sure that these people were involved, and we got our locals involved, but we didn't have any teeth in any of this. It's just conversations, and, conversations can go in one ear and out the other, and unless it's in writing or, it's been presented and such, it typically just doesn't happen. So we just have to make sure we tighten it up on our end.
Yeah, and I'm really concerned. I mean, we talk about local participation, but you can't participate if you don't have the skills to participate.
Right.
And so I'm really concerned about trying to develop vocational programs that will allow people to have jobs and, in fact, careers going forward in the construction industry, because there's clearly a need throughout Florida, not just here in our county, but I think that we really need to do as much as we can to provide opportunities for training.
Most
in the city.
definitely. Okay, so that's it for item number 5. Item number 6.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving the 8th Amendment to the lease for office space between the agency and Millennium One LLC to extend the term of the lease by 2 years through September 2021, providing an effective date.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
If I don't second, then where does the CRA go? Because I don't.
Huh?
If I don't give my second, what happens, Mr.
Second.
Did it again.
That's it.
Okay, the agency, our lease of our current site is up on September 30th of this year. And after meeting with the commissioners, I'm proposing a slight change to the proposed resolution. As you know, we've purchased the property at Broadway and Blue Heron that the board will be entering into rehabilitation construction to create our new offices for Career Source, a new small business accelerator, and some new retail on the ground floor. But that project we don't anticipate being ready for about 2 years. I'm proposing that we amend this agreement, the resolution and the agreement, to be for a 1-year term with an option for an additional year if we need it. This will provide us more flexibility. I know that our new offices won't be ready by then. However, the city is going through a variety of space changes, and if we can save some rent, if they had the available space in the second year as we were transitioning to our new building, then we'd like to possibly leave that option open. So I would propose that we approve a 1-year agreement with a 1-year option.
All right, do we have any public comment cards?
We have one public comment card.
Let me guess.
Bonnie Larson.
Oh,
Come on down.
she says no.
She says no. Okay. She passes.
You're gonna pass? Okay, all right, board. Do we have any questions or comments regarding this item?
Wait a minute. Oh, so do I need to amend the motion? Does the motion need to be amended to include that change? I amend that motion. You amended your second. Is your second all right, Mr. Lawson?
Yes,
Awesome.
second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Do I still do roll call though, right? Yes. Okay. Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Approved as amended.
All right, item number 7.
Legislative update?
Recently, the Florida legislature adopted some changes to how community redevelopment agencies operate. For the most part, the Florida Redevelopment Association had a very aggressive lobbying, and they're although they did not recommend approval of this, they were supportive of the way that the bill ended up happening. And I just want to provide the board a quick summary of what those elements included.
And the governor has not signed the bill yet.
Yes, it's not yet been signed. It requires ethics training for CRA board members. That includes 4 hours per year, and that would start in 2020. They revised the annual reporting requirements for agencies. This includes new digital mapping, updated project info, and more defined budget info. Our CRA already complies with almost all of these. However, we will make sure that that we continue to meet the new requirement. It allows for extension of CRA terms beyond a new sunset date of 2039. Our current sunset date is 2041, so this is a minor change to our existing term. But if the board did want to try and extend it, that option is still available.
And if you have debt past the date, the 2039 date, if you have debt, you are automatically extended.
Also, there was an update to the state agency requirements when declaring inactive CRAs. The state has a lot of CRAs that are actually not in operation, so they wanted to change their ability to close those. It allows the amounts of funding by taxing authorities to be adjusted. The CRA budget amendments now must be resubmitted to the county. So we currently provide our fiscal year reports, our annual report to the county, so we'll also be providing them a copy of our budget.
And if I may add, it's interesting they requiring you to submit your budget to the county, but the county doesn't have the right to approve or disapprove.
They allows they made changes to how capital projects before they had a capital project could be funded for 3 years before you had to amend your budget. The new language provides that each year your annual budget will update those capital projects. Our CRA already operated like that, so this change does not affect us. We'll just continue to follow it. It revised the audit requirements. The audit is now required to accompany the city's annual reporting. However, the city already includes our audit in their audit, so this is something that we were also already doing. So we'll continue to comply. The effective date for these changes will be October 1st of 2019 if the governor signs it. And the last thing is that the CRA is required to adopt the same procurement codes as the city. This change doesn't really have a material impact on us, as our CRA has very strict procurement codes that we currently follow. I believe this change was implemented by some CRAs who weren't following a type of regimented code like we are. So we will have to bring you changes for this. So we'll be amending our policies and procedures to match the cities. But we already have a robust procurement policies, so it won't be a great change to our operations.
In fact, I think our procurement code is stronger than the city's as far as requirements. So we may sit down with the city and see if there's some judgments, do a comprehensive look at the procurement codes at some point. But we are required to start following the city's procurement code.
And that concludes my update.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. Do we have any public comment cards for this?
We have one public comment card, Mary Bram.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
This is Mary Bram, Riviera Beach. In the backup outside there, it is no agendas for the CRA, so quite naturally we look through the book. This legislative here, the new formula that was received, it should have been noted in the booklet. You have nothing there for item number 7 and 8. And these changes are vital. We should be able to see those changes because especially with some of those that was mentioned, as well as those that are also that we are in agreement with that we are doing now. But you made mention about the CRA procurements, okay, to let both, they should go hand in hand. Each one of them should be just as strong as the other, so that when different projects and stuff comes up, it is well, this one over here is doing this and that one over there is doing that. So that's a critical element there. So you really should dive into that. And your audit, where you say you do that annually too. You said that basically you were already doing that. Your taxing authority, those things there. So some of these adoptions, they are critical. And I think the general public on the CRA side, they should be aware of these changes here. So when these things are not done and corresponding with the regular council, because you 6 up there, you 5 up there are governing boards for the general council operation of the city. So you serve as that board too. But we need to kind of correlate some things so that it could be workable. It will also help you all to move in that positive direction that I know that this board here has high goals for, as well as we as residents. We also have the high goals, but we just do not want this hand here not knowing what this hand is doing. So I as a resident, we would like to see everything being board and board. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would apologize that our book doesn't have the agenda summary in it, but our online Novus agenda does have a summary listing all of these changes. So if you go online, it is there, but I apologize, it was missing from the book at the back.
Okay, any comments from the board? All right, thank you for that update. Item number 8.
Presentation and discussion on the upcoming opportunities for enhancing local participation in upcoming projects and discussion of the approach to accomplish this goal.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, Andre, can you put the slide up for this? It's at the end of the first presentation I put up.
Okay.
I'm going to hand these down. This is just a copy of the slide. And actually, if you want to hand these out, put them at the back in case the public wants any. This item, the CRA is proposing to put out an RFP for local participation expert. We need this consultant to assist us with a variety of projects, and we were waiting for recent discussions related to local participation at the city council level, as we didn't want to have multiple consultants working for both agencies. But our projects have an immediate need for an expert in local participation, and I wanted to present the four main areas that we'd like to use them in, and then get this board's feedback, and hopefully to issue an RFP that includes all of those items. Starting with the Marina Village Phase 2 project, this we required to include a community benefits agreement as a part of the development agreement for the Phase 2 project. This consultant would help work with the board. They would provide a workshop directly with you, and then they would negotiate on your behalf along with the development team for jobs, job training, small business opportunities, potential housing assistance, construction jobs, and material purchases by the project. And the scope and detail of all of those, they would work with you directly in a workshop format so that we can make sure that the community benefits associated with the future Marina Village project meet your expectations and the communities. The second project that I'd like them to work on is creating a sheltered market program. This would be a new program that we would have to amend our policies and procedures for to implement local purchasing and modeling other assistance that other successful government programs have already been implemented. And we've looked at a couple, including one in Cincinnati, I believe, and one in Cleveland that was actually brought to our attention by the chair. We want to model some of the successful efforts of these communities. In this program, we would like to create it in a way without having the need for any additional studies. So we would utilize that expert to modify our existing policies and procedures so that we could implement it quickly, because we need it for construction of our Broadway and Blue Heron building rehabilitation. That's a really good candidate for a sheltered market program where we can break up the various construction packages and make sure that some of those packages go out specifically to local contractors, subcontractors only. Additionally, the agency has responsibilities associated with our utility burial project, and those opportunities could also fall within the sheltered market program. And we'd like to create one that fills those immediate needs, but then we could also then utilize that project as we do for all of our future projects. The third item that we would like them to implement local business readiness training to support the growth of local business. This would goes hand in hand with the fourth item, which is providing board reporting on the local business utilization of our projects as we implement our sheltered market, and also including enhanced data collection of available contractors, consultants, and business services. We have to identify all of our potential businesses, contractors, subcontractors who are either ready or potentially could be ready. And then for the ones who are not yet ready for our projects, implement business readiness training so that if they're not available for the current projects that are coming up or not qualified or bonded, that we work with them to help and grow their skills, expand their business, and help them get ready for the next opportunity if they can't get ready for this one.
You had any more?
Those are the items. I would propose we could issue this RFP immediately if the board is in approval of these as the main scope items, or the board could make a decision that you want me to bring that back to you at the next meeting to review the RFP before we issue.
All right, do we have any public comment cards?
We have one public comment card, Mary Bram.
Okay.
Miss Mary Bram, Riviera Beach. My same concern was that it was not indicated in the book. See, even though you say that these things are online and everybody does not go online to indicate that, when you put things in policies and procedures and that black and white indicates there that this is what was on recommendation on your CRA agenda. And when you leave that book blank like that, Scott, it's kind of give a little stickling in the mind. Well, why did you not indicate that in your book, in the CRA book, in case Miss Lawson want to go and get that book and pull it, or Miss Bram want to go and get that book and pull it, or any other resident would want to go and get that book and pull it. It's noted in that book. If we are to be better and do business up and board, it has to be laid out. We are tired of this washing mess. Indicate exactly what you're dialoguing in so that even your auditor, if they wanted to go and pull the book and see, not just the auditor, but IG or anybody who want to go and pull those books. It's documented in those books there because this is their shelter market program. You're putting this out for RFP. And when we pull that book, it's no indication there. So I think that the CRA board could do better in some things. So, to help us all progress along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. We'll just make sure going forward that all of the backup document is out there and that we all have it ahead of time. Okay.
Absolutely.
Any comments from the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Evans, I want to thank you for making this presentation and making a push to actually provide local participation for the different contracts that's coming. One of the things I want us to really take a look at, though, is the data we're collecting and the type of data. I think you had mentioned not having to do a study, but to actually implement an actual process, a disparity study would have to be completed to allow for women and minority businesses to be demanded upon any contracts that we're putting out. So this will definitely help with local participation, but to move forward, I think we're going to need about 2 to 3 years of data collected. So really finding out exactly what data is needed to actually provide and do a study when the time comes.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Evans, exactly how does this look in terms of, when you say participation expert, how does that look for the public?
Part of what we need to do when we craft our sheltered market policies and procedures and create the programs is make sure that it's supported by law and that we're legally able to implement the programs. So the reason we're hiring an expert is because not only have they ideally worked and implemented these programs other places successfully, but they can help us create policies and procedures that will help us not only track and monitor the success of the program, but also implement one that has, or implement similar programs that have had success in other cities. Rather than just trying to create our own from scratch, we want to build upon the shoulders of other cities who've been successful in this.
Anything else, Ms. Lanier?
That's it.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I know that we have been working to create a document that includes all of the approximately 1,300 businesses in Riviera Beach. And one of the things that my aide is working on is to find the URLs for all of those businesses and find the phone numbers, the contact person. Should he at the same time be determining whether or not they are women and minority owned?
At any of our data and collection efforts, if we can include as many categories as possible, those specifically
So we'll
would be
add
very
that.
helpful.
Yes. Because I think I'm going to task him with reaching out to he'll be here until he's an old man, reaching out to every one of those businesses and finding out as much as he can about the ownership and their capacity. So, okay. Do you need a motion on this, Madam Chair?
This was just a presentation and discussion. One of the questions he did ask about was, in terms of the RFP, would the board like for that to come back before it goes out? I would like to personally see it before it goes out. So, anyone else?
No, I'd
Okay,
like
so-
to see it too, but we're telling him he can go ahead and begin to write the RFP. That's what he needs
Yeah,
tonight.
so you
yes.
can have a motion and just say that we're going to bring it, it needs to be
Right.
brought back.
Yep.
I think you need a motion. We understand.
We understand.
Okay.
I have a
Bring it
question.
Yes.
So I was gonna ask, so what do you envision that, how long would we need this,
Expert.
this expert, and why can't we do it in-house? Because everybody doesn't use a consultant. Broward County has, similar to Palm Beach, a department and a specific, I guess, team of people that kind of encompasses some of these things that you have here. So why
don't-
RFP over that? How much money are we looking to spend? I mean, this scope, I understand the scope, but I don't know how in-depth this is, because I don't want you to come back with an RFP of $300,000 for 3 years. I mean,
Our target pricing for this is $75,000, and we're envisioning that it would take about a year. And once we've implemented all of our policies and procedures, and started the actual project, started the beginning of the sheltered market program, then we wouldn't need that consultant anymore. Our staff could take over from there, but we really would need the consultant to help craft the programs and the policies and procedures.
It may be done in stages. We envision that the project on Broadway, the 2600, is going to need a sheltered market, and that project is going to be ahead of, for instance, the Marina project. So we may go ahead and structure it so that we can get at least the shelter market procedures passed immediately, as opposed to some of the other things we would need for the Marina project.
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
But isn't that the same thing that we want to do with the city as well? I mean,
I'm not aware of anything that the city is currently launching into right now, and I know that they want to do that, but we're proposing to immediately start this.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes, to answer that, that is what we looked at when we had the disparity study conversation. The issue is that we as a city haven't been gathering the data that's necessary. And Dr. Botel, that it would be vital if your legislative aid would be able to collect that information, because that's what we need to do a study. What Mr. Evans is presenting is something for local participation that he can implement into current contracts to allow for us to be able to require local participation to benefit from the contracts that's going out, versus a disparity study would be for women and minorities within the community.
yeah, I understand that. I just wanted to, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to, I mean, it appears that this is something that we need to do at the city level as well. And how, I mean, I know that the CRA is a part of the city. How could we work together to make sure that this is something that we're doing simultaneously?
Yes, we can. We will include the city's procurement department in our evaluation committee. We will also include the city's potential use of the findings and results in the RFP, so that if the city wanted to adopt our sheltered market program that comes out as a result of this, that they could then implement it by piggybacking on the work that's completed.
And then also in regards to the list that you were speaking of, Dr. Botel, I think at one point procurement or business tax receipt area were trying to, well, they should have been starting to keep track of that some time ago. I know it came up a little while ago that there was no list that was being kept. So maybe we check with the procurement and see if they have started or business tax receipt. I know there is a list I received, maybe asked for about a year ago, of all of the businesses.
We took that.
Right.
We incorporated the business tax receipt information into this list.
Oh, yeah, okay. But in terms of trying to keep track, they may have started some. So that might be an area that you might want to venture into, so you're not recreating a total wheel. Yeah. All right, anything else from us, Mr. Evans, for item number 8?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. Items tabled, none. Public comments. Public comments should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency. Please be reminded that the CRA Board of Commissioners has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council in the chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the commission chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Do we have any public comment cards?
We do, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Bonnie Larson.
And could you call the next two, so they know to
Rick
be ready?
Myers, Mary Graham.
Okay.
Bonnie Larson, a couple comments on things we went over tonight after I sat down. Again, I urge you to watch those P&Z meetings because there was a lot going on in there, and also for the next subject that the P&Z has a lot of information in there. The bike, we're talking about Avenue E now. Okay, so I don't quite understand how we're going to come up with this money. It said 2,000 is going to, 2 million is going to come from the CRA. So at the end, if you could explain how that's 6 million and 4 million. You said some utility department. I didn't quite understand where all that money's coming from in order for us to do it, because we've done this study twice already. This will be the third time. When they redid US 1, DOT required a bike path. Riviera Beach said, no, we don't want a bike path. We want the median instead. So they said, we, Riviera Beach, will pay for the bike path $1 million on Avenue E. Now, how they're going to have room for that, I don't know, but they made that promise to DOT. I remember that. All RFPs should be run by the board a second time, and you are going to do that. So, the hotel on Singer Island, Volare wants to build. How tall is that? We didn't hear. It looked pretty tall. We didn't hear how tall that was going to be. So, if you could do that. Also, I'd like some follow-ups. We should have unfinished business on here as part of the agenda every month. And I'd like to ask some things I'd like to ask that are, we hear about them and then we don't hear about them again. The garden that they're building on Singer Island, what is the disposition of that right now? You talked about having benches along Avenue E. I would discourage benches because I live near Broadway. And let me tell you, there's a lot of loitering going down there, and you are encouraging loitering by putting benches there. Police come along and say, move it along. Well, they're just sitting on the bench that we provided. So if you're going to have somebody loitering outside your house, that wouldn't be a real popular thing. I wouldn't like that, somebody just having a reason to sit there. So let's not give them a reason to sit there. The vegetation, I talked about this a year ago on, the time's running fast, on Blue Heron and Avenue F. I told you there was vegetation sitting there, and that's a CRA-owned property. I read the contract for the people who are supposed to be cleaning that property, and that vegetation a year later is still sitting there, and they are to clear it of debris. And it looks bad if the city, doesn't keep up with our property. That's been there a year now. It has. Okay, there's a wonderful light that I talk about. The CRA installed those years and years ago. There's one over there. It points at the back of La Granja Restaurant. That's been out for about 4 months. Those lights are wonderful. We should put some money into those lights. Oh, I read on the CRA website that we're going to buy mats so that people in wheelchairs can go down to Bicentennial Park, and that we're going to buy 3 wheelchairs that can go into the water. Of course, this is going to involve a full-time lifeguard there. When was that discussed? If you can tell me what meeting that was discussed, because I didn't ever see that.
Thank you, Ms.
On
Larson.
an agenda. I'm just done now. Thank you.
I know, but we are sticking to our 3 minutes for sure. Everybody, yes. Thank you.
Rick Myers, followed by Mary Graham and J.B. Dixon.
Are you here? Who's next?
Mary Bram.
Ms. Bram, are you coming?
Miss Mary Bram, Riviera Beach. I was unaware that I was coming. I'm gonna wait. Can we wait till they get the
Go ahead,
papers here,
just
please?
keep going, Ms. Brown, we got
Okay.
it.
Apparently, I sat here and I listened to Ms. Calhoun and others talk about the beautification there on Broadway. I know business that are on that corridor there, and if you look at those pictures there, see Ms. Brown did some very color carpets here. So you can actually see Mrs. Scott Evans, that's in your CRA district there. You're over the CRA, and that's that Broadway corridor. I totally agree that we should have a landscaping that is there, that is unique. You can see the overgrown leaning bushes there. You can see on that corridor there, we were in the chambers talking about that medium turn there. It's not that much medium turn, so those cars, and if you pull the police stat report, and you would see that it's been quite a bit of accidents that has occurred on Broadway there because you have the bushes. Ms. Calhoun said bushes. We don't want bushes. This is what we get when we do not take care of our main corridor area there. You see it for yourself. The palm trees are dead and just hanging off. If that's supposed to be our focal point in the city, we must do a better job in maintaining it. I totally agree with the comments that Mr. Lawson did about putting, if you are to build it so they will come, then you build it beautiful. You have the plants, whatever palms that are sustainable for our type of weather that will last, and we can really maintain them. And as a CRA director, interim director, I feel as if it is your responsibility to maintain that corridor so that it can have that beautification with those trees. You got bushes there. You got palms there. And that's about all there. So if that's not maintained, how can we maintain anything else? So we need to do a better job. So you got the pictures there. You know, Ms. Bram, like I say, Ms. Bram want to share documentation with everyone so that we can all be on the same corridor. You have trees that are leaning there. You know, you have the overgrown bushes there. When that little turn in that medium, the people can hardly see. The businesses there are concerned about that.
Thank
and
you,
it
Ms.
starts
Brown.
from 13.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Thank you.
Ms. Bram, I agree with you, and we will work directly. The city's actually responsible for maintaining Broadway. We will provide these pictures to the city of Riviera Beach. I think it's Public Works Department.
Yes.
And we will also assist and work directly with them to make sure that these items get remedied.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Who's next?
JB Dixon.
Is there someone after her? Okay.
JB Dixon, 3000 North Ocean Drive, Singer Island in Riviera Beach.
Good evening.
I wanted to comment on the minority and women-owned businesses. Before I retired, my business obviously was a women-owned business, and we were certified as such. Although I never took advantage of that in terms of bidding on government contracts, for instance, I always tried to do business with women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses, and I never had any trouble finding those businesses. When I came to Riviera Beach, although I was retired, no longer in business, I was involved in 2 projects in which we had to hire people and we had to buy things. And so I did the same thing, and I asked people, because I was new here, where are those businesses? First of all, I couldn't get a straight answer from very many people. Maybe it was just the area, that I was dealing in. It wasn't construction or anything large. But when I did find those, frankly, I was appalled. I never had any problem up north doing business with women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses. The ones that I personally was exposed to, let's hope that that's not typical in Riviera Beach, were not, I would not do business with them. And so that part of the program that I heard mentioned of making sure that the businesses, if not ready now to take advantage of local participation, be given some help to know what is expected so that in the next project they can be, because things like being open when you say you're being open, returning phone calls within less than 5 days, having store hours that are actual store hours that you, I mean, we're talking the same kinds of things that we talk in workforce development, where there are people and businesses perhaps that need some assistance, because you cannot say you must do business with local minority and women-owned businesses if in fact those businesses are not capable of doing the work. And again, this is a small city, and the city I come from was a large city, so I never had any problems with that. And I would just hope that somebody coming to Riviera Beach, especially if you insist that they do business with local participation, that you make sure that the businesses can provide the satisfaction that a business should. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that although I seldom disagree with Bonnie Larson's well-researched remarks, I do tonight, because what you described as kind of a jumbled mass of a plan to have both housing and businesses on the corridor
Thank you,
is...
Ms.
Oh,
JB. Thank you.
Anyway, I disagree with you, Bonnie.
All right. Report of the executive director.
I have nothing for the board.
Report of the general counsel.
I don't have any comments.
Discussion of the board. We'll start with Dr. Botel and go down. Mr. McCoy.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lawson, is it all right if I say something?
3 minutes.
Okay. I have nothing, Madam Chair.
Council Commissioner Lanier.
No, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're good. And I don't have anything for tonight. Thank you. We stand adjourned.